Joining me now is Michael McGrath, the Minister for Finance in Ireland. Wonderful to have you here with us. Lovely to see you.
Great to be here.
There's so much to talk about, but I first want to start out with Brexit. It is a story that keeps going on, but it does feel as though there's renewed focus now on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Is it your expectations that the two sides could come to an agreement soon, at some point soon? There's certainly an inclination from the British government to do something about it.
We are hopeful. The talks are ongoing and there does appear to be a better mood overall, more positive discussions underway between the UK and the European Union. And I think it is in everyone's interest that a negotiated agreement would be reached soon so that we can have free-flowing trade across the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Ireland, north and south, that we protect the Good Friday Agreement and peace in Ireland, and of course that we keep an open border between north and south. So the prize is a really big one and a very important one, and we welcome the signs of progress, and I think we just need to allow the UK and the EU negotiators the time and space now to work out hopefully a final settlement, and we'd all welcome a conclusion to this issue.
Yeah, I'm sure we all will, but is the perception from you and also from the Irish government that the new British government, the Sunak government, is acting in better faith than their predecessors were when it comes to this issue?
I think they do want a resolution because it is certainly in the interests of the UK, who of course want to have and will have very positive and cordial relations with the European Union. And I know they recognise their international obligations in terms of the withdrawal agreement and the protocol, which is part of that. But at the same time, concerns have been raised by businesses and individuals in Northern Ireland in relation to the operation of the protocol. But we have always been of the view that with goodwill by both sides showing good faith, that a way can be found through that. And I think we are moving closer, and hopefully we will see an agreement now in the period ahead.
That is promising. Let's turn to the Irish economy. Ireland is almost a wonder story if you look at the recovery that has taken place since the GFC. I know that Ireland today has a budget surplus of 2%. That's a position that many other European countries would wish themselves to be in. What have been the growth drivers for the Irish story? Why is it? What has been the catalyst for this turnaround?
It's a combination of measures. We have continued success in foreign direct investment, winning multinational investment from the United States and indeed from all over the world, but a very strong domestic, indigenous, SME-based economy as well. And we have a good talent pipeline. We really invest and prioritise education and research. We're committed members of the European Union, a very stable political environment. We signed up to the OECD BEPS corporate tax deal, so we can offer policy certainty in relation to vital areas for the corporate sector. So I think all of those feed into the mix of ingredients that result in a very overall positive offering. But of course we're not immune from the global headwinds. We're a small open trading economy, and if our trading partners are going through economic difficulties, that has a negative impact on Ireland. But we are overall forecasting that there will be growth in the Irish economy this year, but it will be much more modest than in the last couple of years.
Of course. Now, you mentioned signing up to the global tax reform proposal by the OECD. I'm actually moderating a panel on that topic tomorrow. Initially, Ireland was going to be one of the holdouts because Ireland is known to be a tax haven to a certain extent, a lower tax jurisdiction than other countries within the EU. What actually made things how did you change your opinion on signing up to that agreement? What was the catalyst for Ireland to actually sign up for it?
So we signed up to that agreement 15 months ago, and work is underway now on the implementation of Pillar 2, so the minimum effective rate, and Pillar 1 discussions are ongoing at OECD level. We are not a tax haven. Ireland is a country that has a statute-based corporate tax system. We have a common law system. We have recognised reliefs such as the R&D tax credit, for example. But we did sign up to the OECD agreement because we felt it was better to be part of a global solution. We recognise that the way in which profits are taxed globally does need to change, and Ireland, as an important location for foreign direct investment, was an important player in that debate. We did secure concessions, as we would see it, in terms of the minimum effective rate being at 15 and not at least 15. That was is important, and also certain carve-outs that we can continue to offer research and development tax credits in an open and transparent way, because that's an important part of the offering we have for the foreign direct investment community.
Yeah, no doubt, and of course a big pillar when it comes to the Irish economy.
Yeah.
What is the outlook for the European economy now? We've been speaking to various people the last couple of days, and it feels as though sentiment is turning, I don't want to say optimistic, but at least less bearish than it was a few months ago.
I think that's a fair assessment. Just in the last couple of days, I attended my very first meeting of the Eurogroup and also the ECOFIN group of finance ministers in Brussels, and I felt that the mood was a little more positive than it has been in recent months in terms of the overall discussions and the understanding of where the economy is going. And I think it's for a number of reasons. Inflation appears to have peaked. We're pretty certain of that now, certainly in Ireland and around Europe. Wholesale energy prices have come back quite a lot. Gas storage has gone quite well in the European Union, and employment data and other economic data has been less negative perhaps than would have been forecast. So it's still going to be a challenging year, but we're overall pretty confident that the European economy is resilient, and for Ireland that's good news, because we rely on these markets to buy our goods and services.
I also want to ask you about Ursula von der Leyen's comments yesterday on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, and she was talking about the potential counter-proposal to the US's IRA, put forward the prospect of a loosening of some state aid rules and potentially even further borrowing to help advance investments into cleaner, greener technology, etc. What do you think the correct counter is to the IRA? Yeah,
this was the subject of a lengthy discussion among the European finance ministers just yesterday, and I think there will be a response, but it has to be a proportionate response, and it has to be balanced, because
what does that mean?
What it means is the European Union believes in free trade. We don't want to have a subsidies race between the United States and Europe, and also we have to have a level playing field within the single market, so we don't want any changes to state aid rules that will benefit certain countries that might have the means and the resources to provide greater supports and subsidies for companies, but other member states may not have the same opportunity. And so we have to consider very carefully what our response is. There have been good discussions at the EU-US Trade Technology Council. Some progress, I understand, has been made. The European Commission is going to come forward now with its response and its proposals at the beginning of February. So we'll see what those are. We'll consider them carefully. But I don't believe the European Union should be going down the road of, radically changing its approach to state aid in order to counteract the Inflation Reduction Act in the UK. Or in the United States. Of course, the US and the EU are going to have to cooperate and find a way through this issue, as we have to cooperate in so many global problems, not just the war in Ukraine and climate change, just to name two examples.
But is extra borrowing the answer? And the reason I'm bringing this up is, that is one of the proposals being put forward by the European Commission. But at the same time, just a couple of years ago, EU raised hundreds of billions of euros directed towards COVID recovery funds. And those are supposed to go into digital transformation in the economy, green investments as well. So why borrow more if you've already got those outstanding hundreds of billions of euros that are yet to be used as well?
No decision has been made to borrow more. There isn't any agreement on that. We need to see what the European Commission is proposing. But you're absolutely correct. What the EU is doing is already far larger in scale to what the US is doing through the Inflation Reduction Act. And so our focus really is on the implementation of the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility, Next Generation EU. It is all about green investments and digital investments. That's where the focus lies. But at the same time, the EU as a collective will feel the need to respond to what the US has done, because it does have the potential to distort the trading relationship and to be a key consideration for businesses in terms of where they locate their investments either side of the Atlantic.
I suspect you're going to have lots of discussions about this topic at the future EU finance meetings. One other big topic as well, it's going to be, it's something that has been sort of postponed and delayed many times, but at some point there will have to be a discussion about European fiscal rules and a watering down, so to speak, of some of those targets set in the Growth and Stability Pact. Is it your expectation that the EU will be able to come to an agreement on moving those deficits and those debt to GDP targets perhaps to a more lenient territory?
There are different views among member states, but it is the subject of ongoing discussion now, the economic governance review, and as you know, during COVID, the fiscal rules have been set aside, and that remains the case until 2024. So there is a window of opportunity now for discussion at EU level and hopefully agreement. But again, when you have 27 member states, there are going to be different views. Some countries will want pretty strict rules to remain in place, and other countries will want to have more flexibility and more discretion to have country by country arrangements entered into by agreement with the European Commission. So I think under the Swedish presidency this is going to be a top priority in the next number of months, and I anticipate that next month in March there will be discussions both at Eurogroup and at ECOFIN where the responsibility for this lies. And
finally, just to round things up, I'd love to hear your perspective on where interest rates are going. And you mentioned now that inflationary pressures have obviously been a key theme in 2022. Do you think inflation has peaked? And on the back of that, do you think the ECB, for example, can afford to step back and perhaps think about pausing?
Well, of course, as a finance minister, I have to respect the independence of the ECB, and they make their monetary policy decisions, but we all know their target for inflation is 2%, and even though inflation has peaked and started to come back, it's still 8-9% across the Eurozone, so there's a long way to go, and I think it is widely anticipated that there will be a further tightening of monetary policy over the period ahead. Of course, that does have an impact on consumers, on businesses, on the sovereign as well, but it is in all of our interests ultimately to get to grips with inflation and to get it under control, because it hurts people, it hurts standards of living, and it impacts on businesses and their cost base and their competitiveness. So the ECB will do their work, and as a government and as a European Union we will have to manage the levers we have at our disposal, such as fiscal policy.
Michael, thank you so much for joining me around the desk. Good luck with the rest of the finance minister meetings you're going to have this year. So much to talk about in 2023. Michael McGrath, the Minister for Finance in Ireland. And stay